Day 7 of the 1 year fast. Today I had an acquaintance come up to me and say, "Alfie, your videos, they're absolutely atrocious." And of course I can't argue with that fact. They are pretty raw. I'm going to aim to improve the quality of the videos over the course of time. God willing, I've got 365 days to improve based upon the 1 year fast. Hopefully I can improve the quality sooner rather than later. Maybe look at upgrading my software, maybe look at upgrading my environments. I'll take a look and see what I can do to improve the quality. But you know, it didn't take me by any surprise when an acquaintance kind of shared that opinion. And again, a valid opinion. Okay, so day 7, I'm going to be stepping into fasting again tomorrow. Sunday is the start of my fasting week, Sunday to Saturday. Last week I fasted Sunday, summer solstice, Monday and Tuesday. This coming week I'm probably going to fast Sunday and Monday. So a 48-hour fast, do my ketone readings at the end of that fast, 48 hours, and then eat again, and then probably fast for 1 day, either Wednesday or Thursday. Obviously, I'm going to play it by ear. That's my liberty. I kind of study this protocol with some liberty in terms of which days I select each week. So yeah, feeling good. Just by way of conversation, and again, the purpose of these videos is really for me to keep kind of document my emotional, mental, psychological, and we suggested even potentially spiritual health during the course of the 1 year fast. It's easy to measure data when it comes to health. Take your blood readings, get your DEXA scan, get your RMR, VO2 max, and it's relatively simple just to keep a log of your physical health. It's not so easy, particularly for me, to keep a log of my mental, emotional health. So I'm hoping these videos will do that. And yeah, so by way of sharing some more information about me. So I am I'm a privileged person in terms of I am a dual citizen. I was born in London, in England, in the UK, and now I live in the US. So I lived in the UK up until my mid-30s. I then moved to the US. I was very, very privileged to become a citizen in 2015. So I'm a citizen of both the US and the UK. Since I've been over to the US, I've been back and lived in the UK for periods of time, a couple of years in the West Country. So yeah, I've been very, very lucky in that regard. And I do value and I do understand how privileged I am to have that dual citizenship. I love both countries. I love the UK. I love my heritage. I love the US. The US is a land of pioneers, and I love it. I'm also very mindful of the adage of when in Rome, and I do all I can when I'm in the US to assimilate, to be part of the culture of the United States and the people of the United States. It's so easy as well. Generally speaking, in the US, I find that people are incredibly, incredibly decent, warm, engaging, funny, and really great people. So it's really easy to assimilate. So I'm very lucky in that regard. And talking of living in the UK and living in the US. So the very first time I fasted, I was 16 years old. I don't know what the compulsion was. I just had this compulsion to fast. And I fasted for 3 days when I was 16. And it wasn't an easy fast. So I had hunger pains. I wasn't used to not going without food. I kind of lived on tea, which was really bad because really became dehydrated. But I felt at the time, that warm sensation of drinking a warm cup of tea, it kind of alleviated some of the stress of the fast. So I did that. And also got some headaches. I remember the first time I fasted. And that's when I was 16. And then after that, I fasted three days in a row, at least 6 times a year. So I was quite consistent in my fasting. And I remember I lived in Boston in Lincolnshire for a period of time. I moved up from London to Boston in Lincolnshire. And I remember going to a herbalist, and I said to the herbalist, really great guy, I said to the herbalist, look, I'm looking to go on a fast. can you provide me with some concoction to help cleanse me as I'm fasting? And he was really almost, he was quite angry in the fact that, this is a real bad thing to be doing. You shouldn't be fasting for any period of time. And this was going back into the, I think it was the 80s, maybe the 90s, no, the 80s, and no, 90s. And so I managed to persuade him to make a concoction. The concoction tasted amazing, really, really lovely taste. And it was to purge and cleanse the body, kidneys, liver, etc. And he kind of done it reticently, but he gave me that concoction. And then I remember going back to him maybe a couple of months later, and he said to me, Alfie, actually, I was wrong. Fasting is not problematic. It's part of our DNA. So when we look back in history and we consider ourselves as, that hunter-gatherers and that foraging, hunting, we only ate when we foraged and found fruits that we could eat, or we, historically, we killed another animal and consumed it. So that's the only time we ate, and that wasn't every day. That could be intermittent. So in our DNA, it's not that we should be eating every single day of the week. Our DNA really is, we should fast. We should abstain from consumption at least a few times a week. That's our historical nature. And so he kind of came around to my way of thinking, I believe. And again, a great guy in Boston in Lincolnshire, which leads to a conversation around. So again, born in London in the UK, moved to the US in my 30s, lived here a good amount of that time, obviously been back to the UK for a few years. So I've kind of been both sides of the Atlantic. And that brings me to the conversation around living in the UK and living in the US, having that privilege of being a dual citizen. I lived the length and breadth of the UK, north, south, east and west, before I eventually came over to the US. And again, I lived in Boston and Lincolnshire for a while. I moved up from London to Boston, lived there for a while. And then I also was in Boston, Massachusetts for a while. And I would tell the locals in Boston, Massachusetts, oh, your heritage is rooted in Lincolnshire, Boston, Lincolnshire in the UK. And they would laugh at me. So, Alfie, what do you mean? We're a metropolis, we're a unique city. We are what we are. And I try to explain, no, actually, if you look at the history is we had the Pilgrims come from Boston in Lincolnshire across the Atlantic to, obviously, stopped on the way to North America and established Boston, Massachusetts. And so your heritage, really, if you look all the way back, is Boston, Lincolnshire. And it's obviously the two areas are obviously got that union, but they are diametrically opposed in terms of their stature. Boston, Lincolnshire, a lovely place, is a relatively small town in Boston, Lincolnshire, in the UK. It does have I believe it's the biggest church in England, St. Botolph's, lovely church. But it's a relatively small town, coastal on the Wash. Boston, Massachusetts clearly is a metropolis. It's a massive city. It's a wonderful city, although some people might be trying to deconstruct it. But it's a beautiful city. And so the two areas are, in their size and their stature, somewhat diametrically opposed. But Boston, Massachusetts does have its roots in Boston, Lincolnshire. And I believe there's a bit of synergy between the two. Clearly, Boston, Lincolnshire, very Puritan. It's a town that has a history in agriculture. There's lots of farming, arable farming around Boston. It has quite an illustrious history. It was quite wealthy at one point. It's not too far away from Lincoln, and and obviously all the history there is very steeped in history and very, very proud people. And then you look at Boston, Massachusetts, it's similar. When you look at the history of Boston, Massachusetts, proud people, Puritan, strong, independent. So there's lots of a synergy between Boston, Lincolnshire, the relatively small town, and Boston, Massachusetts, the metropolis of the northeast of America. And when I try to share that with people in Boston, Massachusetts, initially they're kind of hesitant and react with some kind of doubt. But then when you explain, they soon come around and understand. Okay, yeah, that's really that's quite an interesting relationship.
We left Boston in search of a new life. The journey was long and full of peril, but our faith remained strong. We have finally reached these new shores.
And why do I share this information about Boston, Lincolnshire, and Boston, Massachusetts? I really just wanted to share some information about myself, so you've got an understanding of who I am, and also it really is about having these moments of, let's call them reverie, so I can look back and say, okay, when I look back for reference, I was doing reasonably well, I'm showing good indicators, or maybe we can discern that I'm not doing so well through how I'm articulating what I'm saying, and that could be an indicator to help us understand emotional, mental, psychological, and I keep on saying kind of a reticence to say it, but also spiritual health during this 1 year fast. Because for me, again, it's very difficult to measure this. It's not as easy as physical, which is just clear data. So that's the purpose. And Boston, Lincolnshire, relatively small town in the UK, and Boston, Massachusetts, the metropolis of the northeast of America, are united, and there's lots of synergy between the two areas, even though they are diametrically opposed in terms of their stature. I just wanted to share that. So this is the end of the first week. Stepping into week 2 tomorrow. Again, I'm going to fast Sunday and Monday next week, God willing. And then I'm probably going to break the fast on the Tuesday. Probably start the fast again either on the Wednesday or the Thursday next week. So I'm not going to do a full 72 hours in a row next week, 3 days in a row. I'm going to do a 48-hour fast, then a 24-hour fast next week. I think it's really good just to kind of break this up. You should share some insights, keep that kind of contrast of data coming across. So when we finally measure this at the end of the 1 year fast, we've got some variance that we can look at. So that's me for day 7, end of the first week. Looking forward to going into week 2. Thank you.